Okay, let's talk about something that, let's be honest, drives all of us a little crazy: password fatigue. We're going to dive into the real science behind why juggling all those different complex passwords feels absolutely impossible. So let's just start with the question that I know you've asked yourself. After all the warnings, all the data breaches, why do we still end up using the same password for, like, everything? You know the common answer, right? The one we tell ourselves? It's just laziness. Plain and simple. It's easier, it's faster, so we just take the shortcut. But what if that's not really the story at all? Well, check this out. It turns out it's not just laziness at all. It's actually how the brain manages something called cognitive overload. And that one little idea, it completely changes how we should think about this. It shifts the blame from you to your brain's basic wiring. So let's get into that. This whole thing isn't about being lazy. It's about how your brain is designed and how it's trying its best to cope in a world that just throws way too much information at it. So you've really got two ways to look at this. There's the myth that reusing passwords is some kind of personal weakness, a character flaw. But then there's the reality, which is backed by psychology. It's your brain's go-to strategy for dealing with an overwhelming flood of information. To really get this, we've got to look at how your brain actually thinks. We're going to peek under the hood at the science of mental shortcuts, the ones your brain takes every single second of the day. Okay, first key idea: cognitive overload. Just think about every single thing you're supposed to remember: PIN numbers, license plates, Wi-Fi codes, and oh yeah, dozens of unique, complex passwords. At a certain point, your brain just gets totally overwhelmed by all this meaningless information, and it kind of just shuts down. So, how does your brain fight back against this overload? It uses its default setting, which is called cognitive ease. This is basically your brain's natural instinct to prefer anything that feels familiar, simple, and, most importantly, meaningful. It's the brain's energy-saving mode, and it's on almost all the time. And just how much do we rely on this autopilot? Get this, it's about 90%. That's right, for roughly 90% of your day, your brain is running in this low-energy mode, always looking for the easiest, most familiar path. And this is where the big problem comes in. It's a clash, really. Our brains are hardwired to look for meaning and simplicity. So what happens when we try to force-feed them pure, random nonsense? Well, you get a system that's doomed to fail. Let me put it this way. What actually makes a password like this one so much harder to remember than, say, a person's name? They're both just new bits of information, right? But one feels like a total nightmare to remember, and the other can stick with you for life. Why is that? Well, it boils down to something called the arbitrary label problem. See, a name isn't just a random word. Your brain immediately links it to a face, to memories, to context. But a password like that, it's what's called a purely arbitrary label. It has absolutely no connections to anything else you know. It's meaningless. And so your brain just sees it as useless junk data. Think of your brain's filing system working in 3 super fast steps. Step 1, it sees this string of meaningless data, our complex password. Step 2, it tries to connect it to anything it already knows, and it just comes up totally empty. So what's the logical third step for a brain trying to save energy? It actively forgets it. It literally dumps it to save fuel for stuff that actually matters. So what's the big takeaway here? What does all this mean? Well, maybe it means we should stop fighting our own brains. The solution might be to embrace this idea of cognitive ease, to build security that works with our psychology, not constantly against it. So let's just recap what we figured out. First, and this is the big one, password fatigue isn't a character flaw. It's a cognitive feature. It's just how our brains work. Second, your brain is literally designed to reject random, meaningless information. And third, all of this creates a huge natural conflict between us, humans, and the security systems we've built. And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. If we know for a fact that our brains aren't built to handle the kind of passwords we have today, which one should we be trying to change? Our brains or our technology? That's a question we're all going to have to answer pretty soon.